Where do we come from? For centuries, the greatest question in the history of science had no scientific answer. Then, the first evidence of a human ancestor started a scientific revolution. This is the story of the quest to find the origins of the human race. It spanned a century and a half of obsessive searching. It would make and break the careers of the greatest scientists in the field. For the lucky few, a chance discovery would open a window on the hidden world of our ancestors. Now, from the tiniest fragments of the past, the full story is finally pieced together. Spanning 300,000 generations, over 3 million years. It is the history of our progress from ape to man. The search for the origins of humanity will be a story of bones and the tales they tell. The first chapter of that story will begin here, 40,000 years in the future. In the entrance to this cave, with the discovery of this man. The year is 1856, and the cave lies in what is now the Neanderthal Valley, Germany. Workmen are digging for limestone. It's a vital ingredient in the local chemical industry, but it lies under a layer of rock and dirt. The men get paid a few cents a day to remove the surface layer, and everything in it gets thrown away. But then a spade hits something that doesn't sound like a rock. The shape looks like the top of a skull. And thinking it might be a murder victim, they stop work to show the foreman.
Ja. Hast du etwas gefunden? Ja. Was ist denn das?
It's interesting, but he's seen this kind of thing before. And he's happy to send it the way of all the other bits of bone they found, to be smashed up with the rocks. Yet something makes him change his mind. He knows a local school teacher who might be interested to see it, and the novelty skull gets a reprieve. What he could never imagine is that the skull is seeing the light of day for the first time in more than 40,000 years. Western Europe, 400 centuries before Christ. And the original owner of the skull is a living, breathing being. He is a hunter, a tribal leader, a father of children, and a member of the most successful species on the European continent at this time. He is Neanderthal Man. 40,000 years later, high school professor Johann Fulrad gets the chance to see the skull for the first time.
Hallo, meneer! Hallo!
A keen amateur geologist and former anatomy student, Fulrad has no idea if he's come on a wild goose chase.
Ja, guten Tag, meneer. Wir haben etwas gefunden.
But the moment he sees the skull, He knows instinctively that this is something extraordinary. It looks fossilized, which would make it thousands of years old. And it's clearly not an animal. But neither is it from a normal, modern human being.
This particular skull is the skull of Neanderthal, and it's big. This individual lived around 50,000 years ago, and by that time Neanderthals had developed a brain that was as large and in some cases larger than the modern human brain. You notice that it's rather long and low, and it's almost as if you grab the front of a human face and pull it out. You also have this big protruding nose, and in fact look how large that nose is. So they would have looked different from modern humans if you actually saw one with the flesh on it.
Over 300 Neanderthal remains have been found from Europe to the Middle East. And they all tell the same story. A short, powerful physique, perfectly evolved for the world he lives in. And it's a tough place. Europe is in the early stages of the last great ice age. Within a few centuries, this land will be under a glacier half a mile thick.
At this time, the climate was fluctuating quite extremely, and we do know that they survived some of the major cold snaps, the major glacial advances.
The only way to support advanced life here is with a high-protein meat diet, and that means learn to be a good hunter, or starve.
What we do know from the skeletons, that Neanderthals were very robust, they were very strong, but they also had this huge brain.
The tools found with Neanderthals suggest they developed sophisticated stone technology. Their weapons are the tools of their survival and need to be maintained. If a spear fails at the critical moment, the hunt will fail. Neanderthal males seem to have supported loose family groups of up to a dozen. But this trip has already taken 3 days and covered 10 miles with, so far, no sign of any prey. Then they find animal droppings. Neanderthal nasal cavities are unique among hominids, suggesting a highly evolved sense of smell. And they recognize the scent of red deer. Rubbing the droppings on their skin will help to disguise their approach, if they can catch up with the deer. They've had to range further in recent months to find a kill. Red deer numbers have fallen rapidly, and they have no idea why. But what they don't know is that they have competition. And the competition will one day drive them to extinction.